All right. Um, just for the record, please introduce yourself. Name, age, profession.
My name is Bill Korchinski. I am 68 years old and an engineer retired.
Mm. It's funny you say my name is Bill Korchinski, exactly like the answering machine.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was your first childhood memory?
It was standing on the wall in front of our house in Berkeley. My brother and my friend Howie Hartslick and me peeing onto the sidewalk.
How old were you?
I think we were 3, and my mother was not happy.
Tell me about your mom.
My mother was a nurse, which was unusual in those days for a woman to have a profession. She took it quite seriously. She only worked for 3 or 4 years, but that shaped how she treated me. So every time that there was some minor thing wrong, she was quite worried about it, temperature or asthma or whatever. But she's a good mother, a loving mother.
What's the best advice she gave you?
Well, we asked my parents her advice when they were in their 60s, and she said never stop laughing. So that was good advice.
I remember that. I also remember her saying, "You learn a new thing every day. You learn something new every day."
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good advice, all right.
Tell me about your dad.
My dad was very ambitious. He got through school very quickly, particularly his PhD in chemical engineering. I don't know how fast he got through, but it was way faster than normal. And he just wanted to get out and work. He was born without a father. His father wasn't around because he died early. So my father wanted to get working right away, and he just worked right out of the box, and didn't never stop until he retired.
What was the best advice he ever gave you?
Well, he gave us advice to put one foot in front of the other.
Meaning what?
Just if things go wrong, just keep walking. If things are enjoyable, just keep walking. Just kind of just live your life. To me, that's what it meant. It wasn't really creative advice. It was just don't stop, don't give up.
Tell me about your grandparents.
I knew my mother's parents the best. They came over from Ukraine when they were a couple years old, just around 1900, and moved to Saskatchewan. And their parents started the store in Shiho. And my grandparents ended up running the store. So they sold everything from boots to shirts, to chocolate bars to canned food, everything. And that's what I spent their whole livelihood doing. They grew a big vegetable garden in the back and put stuff up in jars every season, and gotten most of their stuff that way to eat. And my grandfather was quite creative musically. He played at weddings and so on. My grandmother was always really friendly and outgoing, and my grandfather was, by contrast, a little bit inward looking, but they're really nice people. They treated us really well.
Do you have a favorite memory of your siblings?
Well, I remember the most fun we had was playing hockey on a skating rink at one place or another, Toronto or Kingston. We'd flood the backyard and just get our skates on and play hockey back there, which was quite fun. It was real informal hockey, but it was fun in the winter to go out and do that.
And then you said that was in Kingston, or?
Oh, in Kingston and in Toronto and in Sarnia, those places we had rinks in the backyard. In Kingston, it was Lake Ontario, so it was a pretty big rink. But yeah, we had in 3 cities, we had rinks every winter.
I was going to ask you, tell me where you grew up, but when people ask you where you grew up, what do you say?
I say I lived in lots of big cities in Canada, and when I started to count them, there were like 8 or 9 or maybe 10 even.
Mm.
And then I named some of them like Vancouver or Calgary or Winnipeg. But people's eyes generally glaze over. They don't know much about Canada, you know. So if you said Winnipeg, they just don't know what you're talking about.
Did you have a favorite place of those?
Yeah, Kingston.
What did you like about Kingston?
Our house is right on the lake, so you got home from school and went out in the boat and went fishing every single day.
Mm.
And in the summer we went water skiing, and it was great.
I didn't realize that you had that house, so that's why you like lake vacations a lot then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, plus I was in a high school that was sharing its time with another high school that was being rebuilt. And so we had shifts, and my shift at the school was from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m. And then I was home by, 1:45. And I had all that time off to go fishing or swimming or whatever. So it was fantastic.
What was the biggest fish you ever caught?
Probably a 5-pound pike or 6-pound pike. And a couple of big bass, 4 or 5-pound bass.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've always actually, I remember you telling me that pike story. I've always wanted to catch a pike because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Tell me about the time you broke the rules growing up.
Sometime I broke the rules. That's a good question. Well, there weren't times when I broke that many rules, but there's a time when my friend Steve almost derailed a freight train. The two of us were together. He broke the rules, but I was kind of helping him. So that was a pretty flagrant mistake that we made.
How do you derail a freight train?
It was going by on the tracks near where we were in the marina, staying over in our boat, and we heard it coming, so we went up to the halfway up towards the Whistler Highway, and we were throwing rocks into the boxcars that were empty, just tossing them in. And it wasn't that challenging. And then my friend Steve grabbed the big boulder and he heaved it, but he missed the boxcar, but it landed on the tracks just when the wheels hit the tracks. And about 3 or 4 boxcars went up in the air, no sound at all. And they landed back down on the tracks, but they didn't have to land that way. They could have landed, and derailed the whole train.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Other times we broke the rules. We had stupid stuff like walking on the ice on the lakes in the winter the ice was bending and starting to break, and we thought how cool it was that it wasn't really breaking, it was just bending. So that wasn't smart. We never did anything really horribly bad, just sort of stupid, knucklehead bad.
Just degenerate.
Yeah.
Stuff. Do you remember any, I guess, when you think about significant historical events when you're growing up, is there anything that stands out?
You mean historical events that were kind of outside of my life?
Canada or United States or world
Vietnam War was a big deal. That was always on TV, always protests, always news about it. It seems like it was always around, Vietnam. Then there was also when we landed on the moon, and I remember watching it in my house in Vancouver. And when I thought about it years later, it was almost 10 years to the day that I got married from watching the moon landing, and I felt so young at the time that it seemed like such an amazing thing that for 10 years from that day I was married. That was a pretty big event, the moon landing. It was kind of an optimistic time in the world, so that was cool.
What was the most significant invention of your lifetime?
Transistor.
Why the transistor?
Well, that's what enabled computers to start. So started off with calculators and then simple computers and then complicated computers and took off from there. It's by far the most important invention.
Transistor was what, the 50s, 40s?
I think it's 50s. Jack St. Clair Kirby is the guy who invented him. He got a Nobel Prize for it.
What was your favorite subject in school?
calculus. Um, that was one subject where I could get the same answer in multiple ways. And I just found it satisfying on a test to check my answer using different techniques, and I always got the same number.
Mm.
So I knew it was right.
Mm.
So then I got 100% in the test because I knew that I was doing it the right way.
It's funny. I think that was my favorite subject too. I loved that calculus is basically the study of change. I found that really interesting.
Yeah,
I wish it was taught like that more too.
right.
Did you have a favorite year in school?
University or high school?
Maybe just from kindergarten all the way up through your master's.
I'd say second year university, because I kind of knew what university was all about, what to expect. I was doing pretty well in school. I was finding the courses easy, and I had a kind of a routine down, for studying. So that was probably my best year. I had good friends by then.
Tell me about meeting Mom.
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, I saw her sitting on the kitchen counter at this party, and I asked where she got her ring from. She was wearing a ring on her finger, because I didn't want to waste too much time on someone who'd already had a boyfriend. It's practically. And within a very short period, I was in love with her. It wasn't more than half an hour, which is pretty amazing. So, like Mom said, we danced for a bit, and then I just wanted to get out of there. It was too noisy. So we went up the street to a little coffee shop and just had coffee and talked. And it was really nice. Then it was snowy, kind of magical winter night. And I called the next day at that house, but she was out. So I couldn't get a hold of her, and I thought, oh, well, that's it. And then my classmate who actually lived in the house came to class the next morning, Monday morning, and gave me a note that Mom had written to say to, come by and see her. And it was smeared with perfume, but she didn't have her phone number or anything on there, so I had to try and figure out how to find out where she was. Have a challenge. So, I tracked her down that way.
Do you remember when you guys got coffee? Do you remember what you talked about?
Yeah, what we were going to do, traveling, where we were going to travel, just what we like to do in life, where we came from, and it was one of those conversations that was very easy right out the start.
So I guess looking forward then, since you talked about travel early, did you have a favorite trip that you took with Mom?
Well, we had planned to go to England because my parents were living in London at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I said maybe we'll go to London together. And Mom said sure. So we didn't know if it was real or just, making it up, but that's what we talked about.
And then you ended up going to England together?
Yeah.
Nice. What do you love about Mom? What are some of your favorite things?
There's so many. She's generous. She's kind. She's pretty. She has a wonderful sense of humor. She loves life. She helps me with stuff. When I need help, she's very supportive. She loves you guys. She's just a wonderful, generous person, and we get along perfectly all the time, which is really unusual.
And then why did you decide to have kids?
It wasn't my decision as much as Mom's. From her perspective, it was just going to happen, and from my perspective, it was like I didn't really think about it much, but I was like, oh, okay, it's not a bad idea. I wasn't very decisive, but I saw how much Mom wanted them, and I thought, well, I'm going to want them too then. So it was her decision mainly.
What was, when Scott and I were growing up, what was something that frustrated you about us, and what was something you loved about us?
Well, it's partly what Mom said, that you were particularly strong-headed sometimes about certain things and had to get your way. You'd lie down in the middle of the road and not go where we were going, for example. And Scotty, he generally went with a program. He was pretty good about stuff, so that way he was much easier than you were. I don't recall him being really difficult about things.
And then, what did you love about us?
Well, you guys are a lot of fun. I mean, we used to do stuff outside in the snow, or with toys in the big playpen you had, and just playing with that stuff, and just interacting. Reading books or building stuff, or just playing with you guys. Basically, is what I love.
Do you have a favorite book or a favorite movie?
Goodnight Moon is my favorite book.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
I just like the sound of it, and it's wistful. It's kind of just reminds me of your childhood. And a favorite movie, I don't know, Robin Hood. I mean, one of those Disney movies, that I saw so many times on Sunday morning or Saturday morning,
We watched Robin Hood, like 100 times, right?
at least.
What was the best year of your life?
Best year, well, it was the year that I met Mom, and the reason was that I met Mom. That was the best year.
Pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
What was the worst year?
Well, obviously it's this year. Finding out that I have incurable cancer is not a great thing. So, but I don't feel defeated by it. I just feel like it's something I have to deal with. But in terms of a bad year, I think the year that we had the debris flows was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think that having the pandemic was pretty bad. So in some ways, those years are almost worse than this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like this unrelenting, you're getting beat up continually. So, you could pick any one of those 3 years and make it the worst year.
Right.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, really.
What's your favorite food?
That's a good question. I'm going to relax my eating standards for answering this. I might have to say pierogies, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
We have some in the freezer.
I know that.
Yeah. Is there anything you haven't done yet that you always wanted to do?
Well, I wanted to paint more. I just figured that I was going to paint more paintings, and I still might if I have the energy for it. Just to create some more art is what I kind of thought I was going to do at this point in my life. So, yeah, that.
How would you describe your perfect day?
My perfect day? Well, it'd be, physically feeling pretty good. And being somewhere with you guys, your mom, in Quebec, somewhere, then the Laurentians, having a coffee on the little village, going for a swim in the lake, having a rum and coke at night, and then barbecuing a steak or something like that.
Simple pleasures.
Simple pleasures, yeah. Yep.
If you won the lottery, what would you do with the money?
100 million?
100 million. 100 sticks.
100 cents. Well, besides buying one of those big Gatling guns for 100 million,
How big?
the ones they use in the on the ships.
Yeah. Where would you put it?
Well, I wouldn't buy it. I mean, I'd like to have one, but they are actually $100 million. I'd give half away somehow, and it would be to kids who need help, or animals who need help. That kind of thing. And then half of it I would spend on a big boat, and then invite all my friends on it.
Nice. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, it's funny. I mean, the people that I'm really interested in, I think might be hard to have dinner with. So,
What do you mean, like how?
like
So?
Richard Feynman, I mean, he'd be a hard guy to eat dinner with, I think, because he'd be all over the map. Or Einstein for the same reason. Let's see. That's a hard question to answer because for me, fame doesn't mean much. And someone who's super smart might be hard to talk to. So you want someone who's interesting and a nice person. But not shallow. That's a hard question, Alex. I really don't know. I mean, I can't answer that question. I think of an answer, I'll come back to you, but who would you pick?
Feynman.
Feynman?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's the first guy that popped into my head, but I just wonder if he'd be, his conversation would be too hard to follow, you know?
You have to steer him a bit.
Maybe, yeah.
Feynman, maybe Hunter Thompson, maybe probably Mom's dad, Leslie Withers.
Yeah. Well, Feynman is the guy that came closest to my list, but I just had trouble imagining how you talk to him.
Got it. Before I get to the last question, I forgot to ask about your career. Why did you pick the career that you did?
That's a good question.
You're wearing the shirt right now, right? AIM?
Yeah, it was, what happened? I graduated in my master's degree, in my bachelor's degree in Commenge at Queens. I just had to get some kind of job. So I worked at a job I found a place that made roofing shingles in Montreal. And I wasn't suited to that job at all. It's mechanical engineering, which I knew nothing about. And then just towards my second year, they were changing one of the guys out of the company, and I was going to replace him. His job was to get the computers to run on the machines that made paper, roofing paper. And then I could see an interesting thing to do where the computers have to measure how thick the paper is, and then the algorithms change the size of the thickness of the sheet and then how dry it is and everything. And then I became interested in the whole idea of process control that way. Also, I got tired of that job and I quit and went got to get my master's. So I got my master's from my advisor who was really good at doing that kind of modeling and process control, and he taught me how to do it. And then when I got a job in an oil refinery doing exactly that, process control, and I was at a refinery, Gulf Oil, that was changing all of their instrumentation from pneumatic, old, stuff, air hoses, to electronic, to computers. And I was working on all those projects to convert the whole refinery over. And so I got to basically learn how all the algorithms work and how they all got set up, and got involved in all those projects, and I really enjoyed what I did. So converting a refinery from old style to state-of-the-art computer stuff. Yeah, and I did some very advanced stuff in the refineries as a result of that.
Do you have a defining moment in your career or moments that you're proud of?
Yeah, it's funny. I have a couple of funny answers to it, but one is when I discovered that the process measurement was taking too long to get measured because there was a little tube about this round coiled up in a coil inside the instrument box, and all the delay in the measurement was in that little tiny tube. So I had the instrument guy chop out the coil and just connect it directly. All the delay in the measurement went away, which is really valuable to make it easier to control. There's that. There's the time when I rescued two guys from being killed, which is a whole different ballgame. These two guys were digging a trench around a big pool, and they had the trench wall here and the trench wall here, and just like a 10-foot hole here, and they had a piece of plywood across and they were standing on the plywood. And they called the concrete truck to come over, and he was pouring concrete onto the plywood where they were standing. I could see it starting to bend, and I yelled at them to get off the plywood, and as soon as they understood what I said, they got off, and the whole thing just collapsed down this hole. You know, a few tons of concrete and the plywood, and these guys weren't in it, and they jumped out. So they would have died for sure.
Yeah. So problem solving and people. Sounds like for you.
Yeah, problem solving. There were a few times when I solved very difficult problems, and I was just proud of that. Problems that took me sometimes a month, or sometimes, you know, a couple of weeks, that just weren't easy to solve.
And then what advice do you have for a life well lived?
Just be good to people. You know, be as good as you can to people. Tell the truth all the time, as often as you can, maybe. You know, take the high road. Find out where it is and then take it. Just treat people well, you know. There's nothing to be gained by treating them poorly. Just be curious, you know, about how things work or how people are, and, you know, try to keep learning however long you can. Make good friends and keep them.
And then when you say be good to people, like what does that look like?
If somebody is mentally, you know, kind of lower intelligence than normal, you can still have a perfectly fine conversation with them. If somebody is acting poorly, just give them the benefit of the doubt that there's something going on in their lives which is causing them to be that way. And that's not always how they are. You know, just give people a break and assume that there's something that's making them be that way, and it's not just them, you know. And nothing profound there, but it's
No, it's quite profound.
good rules to live by.
Totality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me or any questions I forgot to ask?
I don't know if you, knowing what you know now, is there anything you change about your life up to this point?
That's a great question. Not really. Nothing significant. I wish I'd called Grandpa more.
Oh yeah, I did too, actually.
That'd be one. I wish I hadn't done squats incorrectly when I was 15.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to look back in retrospect.
Those are probably the only two real actual regrets.
Yeah.
What about you?
I just think in those times when I didn't treat people as well as I should have, that I should have treated them better. I can't tell you which times those are, but I know there were some. You know, if you want to do this again, Al, just let me know. We can add on to it.
Yeah, this is great. No,
Yeah.
thanks, Dad. Thanks for just answering honestly.
Of course.
Yeah, I love you.
I love you too.
All right, cool.
Okay.